The ones who mocked your faith will soon ask for your prayers. God says, the same mouths that mocked you will one day call you teacher. Do not gloat, prepare. There is a peculiar stillness tonight, too calm for chance, too charged for coincidence. You feel it before you see it, the air thick with a strange mercy that remembers every cruel word ever thrown against your quiet belief. Years of whispers, rolled eyes, and half smiles, people who said you were wasting your life on hope, who mocked your patience, who dismissed your prayers as weakness. Heaven never shouted back. It just watched, noting every syllable and every tear. Archangel Michael stands once more on the edge of your path. His armor glows not with battle fire but with dawnlight, the color of promises kept. You asked if they'd ever understand, he says. Now they will, but not through punishment. Through need. His voice carries no pride, only purpose. When humility arrives, let compassion open the door. God says, I do not embarrass the proud, I awaken them. When they bend, do not break them. You walk through the town that once echoed your shame. The same people who turned away now stop mid-sentence as you pass. Their faces carry that haunted softness of those who have discovered their own fragility. Life has humbled them, storms have visited their houses too. One by one they approach, not to apologize, but to ask, would you pray for me? And you do. You don't remind them of what they said. You simply bow your head and let heaven translate your forgiveness into intercession. The atmosphere shifts. The street feels lighter, as if gossip itself has lost its appetite. Honor has never sounded quieter or looked kinder. Michael watches, expression unreadable but warm. This, he says, is the highest rank in heaven's army, to love past vindication. He places his hand over his heart, a gesture of respect few angels give. You fought well without fighting. God says. You wanted proof that I saw. Here it is, not their downfall, but their return. You sense it, something cosmic unclenching. The same world that mocked prayer now kneels in it. The harvest has begun, not of revenge, but of realization. Every cruel word that once bruised your faith becomes a stepping stone for theirs. They will never forget that the one they ridiculed was the one who blessed them. Night drifts toward dawn. The horizon burns faint gold, the color of reconciliation. You lift your eyes, whisper a final prayer, and somewhere unseen, heaven nods. God says, now rest. Tomorrow they will seek you again, not to test your faith, but to borrow its fire. Forgiveness that teaches. God says, mercy is not memory loss. It is choosing to keep the memory, but without the blade. Morning slips in softly, washing the streets with gold. You rise earlier than habit, not because duty calls but because peace no longer lets you sleep too long, it wants to move. The air itself feels like answered prayer, weightless, kind, awake. At the corner cafe the usual chatter stumbles when you enter. Old acquaintances look up, surprised, then nod uncertainly, as if unsure whether they deserve your smile. You greet them first. The simple word, good morning, lands heavier than any sermon. It carries a grace they can't define but desperately recognize. Archangel Michael follows at a quiet distance, wings folded like linen drying in gentle wind. Forgiveness, he says, is heaven's most disciplined weapon. It rewrites what memory thought was permanent. He gestures toward the people who once wounded you. Watch what happens when compassion is repeated long enough, it becomes education. God says, they mocked your faith because they feared your patience. Now they envy your peace. Days weave into weeks. One woman stops you on the street, eyes red from nights of regret. I said awful things, she confesses. You listen, then answer softly, I remember. But I also remember how heavy that kind of pain feels. You can set it down now. Her shoulders drop, her tears change shape, from guilt to gratitude. She walks away lighter, and a circle of unseen light forms briefly at her back. At church the following Sunday, pews once half-empty now fill with faces that used to avoid your gaze. Not because of you, but because they miss the way you believe. Faith, once mocked, has become contagious. You sing without trying to sound strong, and the harmony builds itself around you. Michael stands in the back pew, unseen by all but your spirit, smiling like a craftsman admiring good work. God says, do not correct their apologies. Let time finish teaching what pride interrupted. Later, you find yourself counseling the same friend who once laughed at your prayers. They whisper, how did you keep believing when nothing worked? You answer, because belief wasn't working for me, it was working on me. Michael murmurs, heaven calls that mastery. Evening settles, carrying the smell of rain. You walk home slowly, umbrella closed, letting the drizzle baptize the day. Forgiveness has changed texture, it's no longer effort, it's instinct. Every drop feels like affirmation, the world is safe again, and you helped make it so. God says, when mercy becomes muscle, injustice has nowhere left to live. Michael's wings flare once against the clouds, releasing a faint silver ripple across the sky. To teach by loving, he says, is the art reserved for those who survived ridicule without resentment. You have graduated. You look upward, the rain turns to light for a heartbeat, then back to water. You whisper a quiet thank you, not for vindication, but for the chance to stay kind. God says, sleep, beloved. You have become the lesson. The humbled return. God says, when hearts awaken, they do not walk back alone, they follow the footprints of the one who forgave first. Weeks have passed since the laughter around your name turned to quiet respect. The town moves differently now, slower, gentler, as if the very air has remembered manners. The ones who once crossed streets to avoid you now stop in mid-air and to wave. Some bring baskets of bread, some bring silence, but all bring sincerity. You meet them where they stand. No speeches, no triumph, just steady eyes that say welcome back. Archangel Michael walks beside you, bare-handed, the sword replaced by a carpenter's hammer. Rebuilding, he explains, requires tools more than triumphs. Together you help repaint the old community hall, the same place where gossip once began. Now brushes glide across the walls in strokes of forgiveness. Laughter rises again, this time clean. Someone drops a paint can, you bend to help, and for a moment the two of you freeze, because you both remember the words once exchanged in anger. Then you smile, and they laugh, and the sound erases the last echo of that day. God says, humility is the homecoming song of every soul that returns. Soon new projects sprout like spring grass. A food drive, a youth choir, an evening prayer circle on Tuesdays. The same people who mocked your pointless faith now organize shifts to keep the church doors open late for anyone who needs to talk. You sit sometimes at the back pew, watching them carry boxes, tune guitars, whisper prayers they still phrase awkwardly. Heaven calls that progress. Michael leans against a pillar, wings half open, eyes reflecting candlelight. This, he says, is what victory looks like when love stays in charge. He gestures at the crowd, children racing down the aisle, elders clasping hands, strangers laughing without suspicion. You see? No throne, no trumpet, yet all of heaven applauds. God says, I do not raise monuments, I raise communities. Later that night, you walk home beneath a sky rinsed clear by soft rain. The pavement glows, and puddles mirror street lamps like halos laid flat. From every house you pass comes a different melody, someone singing while cooking, a baby's cry, a dog barking once before settling. All of it folds into a single chorus of normalcy that feels holy. Michael's voice follows you, low as thunder softened by distance. They will stumble again. Do not measure their love by perfection, measure it by persistence. You nod, knowing the truth of it. Forgiveness is not a door closed, it's a gate left open with faith that the wind will not slam it. God says, keep your light low enough that others can reach it. At your porch, you turn once more toward the town. Windows glitter like stars fallen to earth. You realize that every healed relationship is a candle in the dark, and together they make night less frightening. You whisper, thank you, and the wind answers with a hush that sounds like you're welcome. Inside, you place the last brush from the hall beside the lamp, a reminder that building peace is daily work. The flame steadies, brighter than usual, and you understand, the lesson is still teaching itself through you. God says, rest, beloved. Tomorrow you will wake to the sound of people calling hope by your name. The blessing returns home. God says, what you gave away in mercy will find its road back to you, multiplied and unshaken. Morning glows softer these days. The world seems to greet you before you greet it. You wake to the smell of bread already baking somewhere nearby, to laughter that used to sound like gossip but now sounds like belonging. For a moment you simply sit, hands wrapped around a mug, watching sunlight crawl up the wall. That light feels familiar, like an old friend who finally kept a promise. You step outside and the street feels alive with gratitude. The woman who once avoided your eyes now brings a basket of fruit. The man who once questioned your faith waves from his truck, then shyly leaves a bag of flour on your porch for the next meal drive. You do not count these gestures, you receive them the way flowers receive rain, naturally, without suspicion. Archangel Michael walks quietly beside you. The steel of his armor has softened to the hue of morning clouds. They have learned, he says, voice like water over stone. Not from sermons, but from your consistency. Faith that survives mockery becomes the pattern others copy when they tire of pretending to be strong. God says, I turned their laughter into seed. Your patience was the soil. At midday you pass the churchyard. Children chase each other between benches, giggling in circles that once held arguments. The pastor waves you over. The roof fund you began months ago has tripled without your asking. We wanted to thank you, he says. You shake your head. Don't thank me, thank the change. He smiles. Then we'll thank both. In the evening a small group gathers outside your home. Faces you once prayed for now carry peace. They hand you a folded card. Inside are simple words in shaky handwriting, for the prayers you never stopped saying, thank you. You read it twice before tears blur the ink into something even holier. You look up, no one is there. Just the quiet satisfaction of being understood at last. Michael stands by the gate, wings half spread, the wind bending toward him as if seeking counsel. Do you see now? He asks. Honor was never about you being above them. It was about them learning to rise beside you. He kneels slightly, a gesture angels reserve for completed missions. You kept the fire when the world was cold. Now the warmth belongs to everyone. God says, I repay not with riches, but with resonance. The love you showed will echo until generations forget the laughter that once wounded you. The night settles in violet shades. Lamps blink on across porches. Conversations drift through open windows. You walk to the edge of the street and watch as one by one, the same people who once doubted you bow their heads together in a small prayer circle. They don't see you watching. They just pray, awkwardly, earnestly, and your heart swells with a joy too deep for noise. Michael's voice moves through the stillness. This is what heaven calls completion, not applause, not reward, but replication. He points upward where the first stars appear. Every forgiven heart adds another light. You whisper toward the sky, then the night will never win. God says, exactly. And as darkness fully falls, the street stays bright, not with electricity, but with the quiet radiance of lives that learned grace by watching yours. The blessing has returned home. The last benediction. God says, when purpose finishes its loud work, it begins its quiet work, the part that lasts. The season has changed again. Leaves burn gold, the air smells of wood and forgiveness, and every street hums with that particular calm that follows long repair. You walk slowly through the neighborhood that once tested your spirit. Nothing grand has happened, no parade, no announcement, but peace hangs everywhere like laundry drying in warm light. Children run past you carrying lanterns made from paper and string. One drops his, and before you can move, another bends to help. You smile. They have learned the rhythm of mercy without ever reading a rulebook. That is how heaven teaches when it wants lessons to last, through imitation, not instruction. At the church, a new mural covers the rebuilt wall, small hands, open palms, circles of color that fade toward the center. You recognize the artist's signature, the same young woman who once laughed at your prayers. Beside her name, in faint paint, are 3 words, thank you still. You touch the wall gently, feeling the pulse of all that has changed. Archangel Michael appears beside the mural, light shimmering through like the echo of sunrise caught in stone. His wings are folded, his sword is nowhere to be seen. The battle is over, he says, and yet the work continues, inside them, inside you. You were not a soldier, you were soil. Everything good that grows here took root in your patience. You walk together toward the river that borders the town. The water moves slow and deep, carrying reflections of lamps and stars in the same frame. This is what faith does, Michael says. It learns to flow around everything that once tried to block it. God says, I never asked you to win arguments. I asked you to stay kind until truth spoke for itself. A cool wind lifts. Michael looks toward the sky. My presence will quiet now, he tells you. Not because you are abandoned, but because you are aligned. When guidance becomes instinct, angels can rest. You nod, understanding in a way words cannot explain. The glow around him widens, soft as candlelight through linen. Before leaving, he reaches out, touches your forehead with one finger of firelight. You have kept your faith human, he whispers. That is the hardest way to keep it. Then he smiles, and for a heartbeat the entire horizon brightens as though heaven applauded silently. The light folds into itself and is gone. You stand alone by the river, but alone no longer means lonely. Every sound, water, wind, the distant song of someone closing a window, feels like company. You lift your face toward the stars and whisper, I forgive again, and again. The breeze answers, and I remember again, and again. God says, this is the circle I cherish, forgiveness returning to the forgiver until the world forgets how to mock. When you finally walk home, the town glows like a constellation of humble lamps. No one watching would guess how many storms it took to earn this quiet. You open your door, and the same small lamp from years before still burns steady on your table. You do not turn it off. You let it shine into the night, a signal to anyone still wandering in their own darkness. Someone forgave you before you even asked. God says, sleep now. The lesson has learned to live without your words. The lamp hums, the river moves, the night exhales. And far above, unseen but certain, wings fold over the town like a promise kept. The hidden prayer. God says, the prayers you whisper and forget are the ones I frame in light. They work while you sleep. Night falls quiet as velvet. You light a single candle, not because you need it, but because its glow feels like conversation. The house is still, yet something stirs, the hum of petitions that never left your lips. You think of all the times you prayed with no reply, for healing that seemed delayed, for hearts that never softened, for strength that arrived only after you'd already cried yourself empty. You assumed heaven was silent. It wasn't. It was busy. Archangel Michael steps through the hush, cloak folded close, eyes reflecting flame. This part of faith, he says, is the quiet machinery, the turning of unseen gears. The world keeps its records in noise, heaven keeps hers in whispers. He kneels beside your table, where the candle trembles slightly. That flicker, he continues, is what your prayer looks like on our side, steady even when small. God says, I never ignore small voices, I simply send them on long journeys. The angel gestures toward the window. Outside, mist curls along the street. In that mist, shapes form, not faces, but outlines of the moments your prayers have touched. A woman you'll never meet who woke with sudden peace, a child who stopped crying without knowing why, a stranger who chose life because something unseen whispered hope. Each one glows for a second before dissolving back into ordinary air. You cover your mouth, stunned. I didn't know, you whisper. Michael smiles. You weren't supposed to know. Faith works best when it doesn't need proof. He stands, wings unfolding until they fill the room with pale gold light. The next season, he says, won't require loud devotion. It will require constancy. Keep lighting the candle, keep choosing kindness, keep forgiving quickly. Every act will draft another hidden prayer into motion. God says, while you wait, I weave. While you rest, I rearrange. The clock ticks toward midnight. You kneel, not out of habit but hunger, the good kind, the kind that reaches for mystery instead of certainty. Words rise, simple and small, use me again. The air warms, the candle straightens, and deep inside, a quiet answer blooms, already am. Michael lowers his wings. They will feel this tomorrow, he murmurs. Someone far away will wake lighter because you prayed tonight. He points toward the flame. When it burns down, don't blow it out. Let it end itself. Even the smoke becomes message. God says, every ending that happens in my presence begins something elsewhere. You stay until the wax pools clear and the wick sighs to ash. Outside, dawn begins its slow rehearsal behind the horizon. The room smells of warmth and honeyed smoke, proof enough that silence was never empty. God says, rest easy, beloved. You have learned the secret of unseen victories. And as you close your eyes, the first light of morning folds over the world, carrying your hidden prayer where it needs to go.